I always thought watching my only son marry would be the happiest day of my life. Instead, I stood frozen in the church vestibule, staring at my phone and the text that would shatter our family forever. I'm sorry, Wendy. Julia and I are leaving together. Please forgive me. Michael. My name is Wendy, and this is how my husband ran away with our son's bride on what should have been the most beautiful day of Ethan's life. Mom? Ethan's voice cracked behind me. Where's Julia? The ceremony was supposed to start 10 minutes ago. I turned to face my son, handsome in his tuxedo, his blue eyes bright with concern. The same eyes as his father's. My hands trembled as I clutched my phone. Sweetheart, I need you to sit down. Mom, what's wrong? You're scaring me. Before I could answer, Julia's Uncle Drew burst through the door, his face red with fury. Where is she? Where's my niece? The next few minutes descended into chaos. Drew waving his phone, showing similar texts from Julia. Ethan collapsing into a pew, head in his hands. My sister Rachel, trying to calm the gathering crowd of guests while I stood there, numb, watching my son's world crumble. I'll kill him, Ethan choked out. I'll fucking kill them both. I knelt beside him, pulling him close like I used to when he was small. No, baby, they're not worth destroying your life over. The church emptied slowly, a parade of pitying looks and whispered condolences. Rachel handled the logistics, calling the caterer, the venue, dealing with the practical aftermath while I focused on Ethan. Hours later, at home, Ethan finally fell into an exhausted sleep on the couch. Rachel poured us both generous glasses of wine. Have you tried calling Michael again? She asked. Straight to voicemail. Same with Julia's phone. I took a long sip. How could he do this to his own son? Because your husband is a selfish bastard who... The doorbell interrupted her. I opened it to find a courier holding a small package. Delivery for Wendy Franklin? I signed for it, frowning at the return address, a DNA testing company I'd never heard of. I didn't order this. Rachel peered over my shoulder. Maybe it's a wedding gift that arrived too late? I tore open the package. Inside was a DNA test kit and an anonymous note. The truth will set you free. This is weird, Rachel said. Who would send this? I stared at the kit, something clicking in my mind. Michael's recent strange behavior, his sudden interest in Julia's family wealth, the way he'd been distant with Ethan lately, almost guilty. Rach, I said slowly, remember how Michael always joked that Ethan looked nothing like him? She gasped. You don't think... I don't know what to think anymore. I set the kit on the coffee table. But whoever sent this wants me to find out something. Ethan stirred on the couch, his face troubled even in sleep. I touched his cheek gently. This boy I'd raised, this young man I'd do anything to protect. What are you going to do? Rachel asked. I picked up the DNA kit again, determination replacing the numbness I'd felt all day. I'm going to find out exactly what my husband's been hiding, and then I'm going to make him pay for what he did to our son. Wendy. No, Rachel. Michael and Julia didn't just run away together. This was planned. The timing, the public humiliation, they meant to destroy us. I looked at the kit in my hands. But they made a mistake. They gave me a weapon. What do you mean? This DNA test? It's not just about proving paternity. It's about connections, family trees. I smiled for the first time that day. And Julia's Uncle Drew? He's part of one of the wealthiest families in the state. I bet there's a lot of interesting information in their family history. Rachel's eyes widened. You're going to use this to get revenge? No, I said, watching Ethan's chest rise and fall. I'm going to use it to get justice. Michael and Julia thought they could walk away from the destruction they caused. But they forgot one thing. What's that? Nobody hurts my son and gets away with it. I set the DNA kit beside Ethan's sleeping form. Tomorrow we start finding answers, and then we'll see who's really sorry. The whispers followed me through the grocery store like persistent shadows. 3 weeks had passed since the wedding disaster, and our small town's gossip mill was still churning at full speed. That's her, poor thing, her husband ran off with their son's fiancée. I gripped my shopping cart tighter, pretending not to hear. A familiar voice cut through the murmurs. Wendy, wait up! Rachel jogged toward me, her face flushed with excitement. The DNA results, they're in. My heart skipped. We'd sent Ethan's sample 2 weeks ago, after I'd finally convinced him it might give us answers. Here? Now? Just got the email notification. She pulled out her phone. Want to look together? I abandoned my half-filled cart, following her to a quiet corner by the pharmacy. Rachel's fingers trembled as she logged into the account. Oh my God, she whispered, eyes widening. Wendy, you need to see this. I grabbed her phone, scanning the results. The world tilted sideways as I read the words. Paternal match, Drew Hill, 99.9% probability. Drew? Julia's uncle Drew? My voice cracked. That's impossible. Is it? Rachel took her phone back, scrolling further. Look at this family tree they've mapped out. Drew has multiple DNA matches in their database. This isn't a mistake. The fluorescent light suddenly felt too bright. Drew Hill, the man who'd been just as shocked as we were at the wedding. The wealthy businessman who'd helped Julia grow up after her parents died. My son's biological father. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Mom, where are you? We need to talk. He must have gotten the results too, I said. I have to go. Rachel grabbed my arm. Wait, there's more. Look at the timestamp on these DNA matches. Someone in the Hill family took this test 6 months ago, right around when Michael started getting friendly with Julia. The pieces clicked into place. He knew. That bastard knew about Drew being Ethan's father before he ran off with Julia. But how? Unless... Rachel's eyes narrowed. Unless Julia helped him find out. I found Ethan sitting on our front porch, staring at his phone. When he looked up, his eyes were red. Did you know? He asked quietly. No, baby. I swear I didn't. I sat beside him, pulling him close despite his initial resistance. I was faithful to Michael. I never... Then how? There was that charity gala, I said slowly, memories flooding back. 23 years ago, Michael and I were separated for a few months. I met someone. I never knew his name, or at least I thought I didn't. Drew Hill. Ethan's laugh was bitter. My real father is my ex-fiance's uncle. This is so messed up. We don't know the whole story yet. I pulled out my phone, but I think it's time we found out. I dialed Melina's number, the private investigator Rachel had recommended. She answered on the second ring. Melina, I need your help investigating someone. 2 people, actually, Michael and Julia. The wedding runners? She sounded intrigued. That case has been the talk of the PI community. What's your angle? I explained about the DNA results, Michael's suspicious behavior, the timing of it all. They're after Drew's money, I concluded. They must be. Michael knew about the connection and used Julia to get close to the family fortune. Smart thinking, Melina said. Give me 48 hours. I'll find out what they're planning. After hanging up, I found Ethan still on the porch, looking lost. What do you want to do? I asked him. I want to meet him. His voice was stronger now. Drew, my father. He deserves to know what Julia and Michael are up to. We will, but first, we need proof. I sat down again, taking his hand. Ethan, listen to me. Michael and Julia didn't just betray us, they tried to destroy us. But they made a crucial mistake. What's that? They thought we'd be too broken to fight back, too ashamed to dig deeper. I squeezed his hand. But they didn't count on that DNA test revealing the truth, and they certainly didn't count on us using that truth to stop whatever scheme they're planning. Mom, Ethan looked at me with new respect. You're kind of scary when you're plotting revenge. I smiled, thinking of Michael's smug face, of Julia's calculated betrayal. They haven't seen scary yet, but they will. My phone buzzed again. Melina had sent her first report. As I opened it, I felt a surge of satisfaction. The hunt was on. And this time, we weren't the prey. We were the predators. Melina's report led us to a luxury hotel in the city where Michael had supposedly been staying. But when Ethan and I arrived, the front desk told us he'd checked out 3 days ago. He's running again, Ethan muttered as we walked back to the car. Like the coward he is. My phone rang. Melina. You're not going to believe what I found, she said without preamble. Drew Hill is at his office right now, and according to my sources, he's about to sign over control of his tech company to a new investment group. Let me guess. Michael's involved? Bingo. He's been positioning himself as a silent partner through a series of shell companies. The paperwork's sketchy as hell. I looked at Ethan. Want to pay your biological father a visit? 20 minutes later, we stood in the lobby of a gleaming office tower. Drew's secretary eyed us suspiciously. Mr. Hill is in a very important meeting. Tell him it's about Julia, I interrupted, and Michael, and a DNA test he might find interesting. She hesitated, then picked up her phone. A moment later, Drew himself appeared, looking exactly as he had at the wedding. Expensive suit, silver hair, tired eyes. Wendy? His gaze shifted to Ethan, and something flickered across his face. Come in, both of you. His office was all glass and chrome, with a view of the city skyline. A stack of contracts sat on his desk. Before you sign those, I said, nodding at the papers, there's something you need to know. Drew sank into his chair. If this is about Julia and Michael, It's about Ethan. I pulled out my phone, showing him the DNA results. He's your son. The color drained from Drew's face. He stared at the screen, then at Ethan, then back at the results. The charity gala, he whispered. 23 years ago, I never knew. Neither did I said. But Michael did. He found out somehow, and he used Julia to get close to you and your company. Drew's hands clenched into fists. Julia's been pushing me to sign these contracts for weeks. Said Michael had connections, could help expand the business. They're scamming you, Ethan spoke up. Mom's PI found proof. Those shell companies? They're designed to drain your assets once you sign. A knock at the door interrupted us. Julia walked in, freezing when she saw us. Uncle Drew, what are they doing here? Funny you should ask. Drew's voice was ice. Were you ever going to tell me about my son? Julia's face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. Stop lying, Ethan stepped toward her. You and Michael planned this whole thing. The wedding, the contracts, everything. How long did you know I was Drew's son? Michael told me 6 months ago, she whispered. He said we could all benefit. The company needed new investment, and you thought betraying my son, your own cousin, was worth it? Drew stood up, his anger palpable. Where's Michael now? I don't know. He took the advance money and disappeared 3 days ago. He used me too. I laughed bitterly. Karma's a bitch, isn't it? Drew picked up the contracts and dropped them in his shredder. Get out, Julia. You're fired from the company and don't expect any more support from me. Ever. She fled the office in tears. Drew turned to Ethan, his expression softening. I know this doesn't make up for 23 years, but I'd like to get to know you, if you'll let me. Ethan nodded slowly. I'd like that. First, I interrupted, we need to find Michael. He's still out there with your company's money. Drew smiled grimly. Leave that to me. I have resources, legal and otherwise. He won't get far. I want to help, Ethan said. He betrayed all of us. I want to be there when he goes down. My phone buzzed. Another text from Melina. Found something big. Michael's planning to leave the country. Tomorrow night. Not if we can help it, Drew said, reading over my shoulder. He pressed his intercom. Cancel all my meetings for the next 2 days. Family emergency. Family. The word hung in the air between us, new and fragile and full of possibility. Melina's good at tracking people, I said. But she'll need access to everything you have on Michael and Julia's dealings with your company. Drew was already pulling files from his computer. Whatever you need. It's time Michael learned what happens when you mess with the wrong family. I watched as father and son bent over the documents together, already falling into an easy rhythm. Michael had tried to destroy us, but instead he'd given Ethan something precious. The truth about his real father. Now it was time to make Michael pay for every lie he'd ever told. He's booked a private jet to the Cayman Islands, Melina announced, spreading documents across Drew's conference room table. leaving tomorrow at 11 p.m. from a small private airfield. Of course he is, I said. Classic Michael running away with stolen money. Drew studied the flight manifest. This is registered to one of my subsidiary companies. He's using my own resources to escape. Not anymore. Ethan grabbed his phone. I just forwarded everything to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. They're very interested in Michael's creative accounting. I smiled, proud of how quickly my son had adapted to this high-stakes game. 3 days of working with Drew had given him a crash course in corporate investigation. There's more. Melina pulled out another file. Remember that elite charity gala tomorrow night? The one all the city's wealthy attend? Michael's name is on the guest list. He wouldn't dare, Rachel said from her corner of the room. Not with everything we know. Oh, he would, Drew leaned forward. Because he doesn't know we know. He thinks he's untouchable. My phone lit up with a text. I nearly dropped it when I saw who it was from. Michael just messaged me, I announced. Wendy, I know you're angry, but we should talk. Meet me at the gala tomorrow, for old time's sake. It's a trap, Rachel warned. No, I smiled. It's an opportunity. Drew, can you get us all into that gala? Already done. As a major donor, I have several extra tickets. We spent the next hour planning. Melina brought surveillance photos, building layouts, guest lists. Drew made calls, arranging for specific people to be present. The FBI wants to wait until he tries to board the plane, Ethan said. Something about stronger evidence. Perfect, I said. That gives us time to confront him at the gala. Make him sweat. Mom, Ethan touched my arm. Are you sure about this? Facing him in public? Absolutely. He humiliated us in public. It's only fair we return the favor. The next evening, I stood before my mirror, smoothing down a midnight blue gown Drew had sent over. Rachel helped me with my makeup, covering the dark circles from sleepless nights of planning. You look dangerous, she said approvingly. Good. That's exactly what I'm going for. The gala was held in the city's most prestigious hotel. Crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, the works. I spotted Michael immediately, holding court near the bar, looking perfectly at ease in his tuxedo. Ready? Drew appeared beside me, Ethan on his other side. I nodded, taking a deep breath. Let's do this. We approached Michael casually. He saw me first, his smile faltering slightly. Wendy? You came? And Drew? His eyes widened as he registered who was with me. What's going on? Hello, Michael. Drew's voice carried just enough to draw nearby attention. Interesting choice, attending my charity gala after stealing from my company. Michael's face paled. I don't know what you're talking about. No? I pulled out my phone, showing him the DNA results. How about this? You knew Drew was Ethan's father. Use that information to orchestrate your little scheme with Julia. People were definitely listening now. Michael glanced around, sweating. That's ridiculous. I would never... Save it, Ethan stepped forward. We have proof of everything. The shell companies, the fraudulent contracts, the stolen money, even your little escape plan for tonight. Michael's glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the marble floor. The room went quiet. You can't prove anything, he hissed. Actually, we can, Drew smiled coldly. The FBI is very interested in your creative financial management. They're particularly excited about stopping you at the airport later. Michael lunged for the exit, but security blocked his way. I walked up to him slowly, enjoying his panic. You know what your mistake was? I said quietly. You thought you could hurt my son and get away with it, but you forgot something important. What's that? He spat. A mother's love is stronger than a con man's greed, always. The security guard stepped forward, but Michael broke away, rushing toward a side door. He made it 3 steps before running straight into Julia. You bastard, she screamed, throwing her champagne in his face. You used me, ruined my life, my relationship with my uncle. The crowd watched in fascinated horror as Michael stood there, dripping and cornered. Hotel security finally grabbed him. The police are on their way, Drew announced, along with some very interested FBI agents. I watched as they led Michael away, his perfectly tailored tuxedo now a mess, his dignity in shreds. Mom? Ethan put his arm around me. Are you okay? I looked at my son, standing tall beside his real father, Then at Michael's retreating form. Never better, sweetheart. Never better. The night wasn't over. We still had to deal with the FBI and the aftermath. But watching Michael's world crumble was worth every second of planning. Sometimes karma needs a little help delivering its messages. The FBI interrogation room was cold and sterile, but I felt nothing but warmth, watching Michael squirm in his chair through the one-way glass. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his hair disheveled, a far cry from the confident man who'd walked into the gala hours earlier. "Mrs. Franklin?" Agent Torres appeared beside me. "We've found the offshore accounts. Your husband was quite thorough in documenting his fraud." "Ex-husband," I corrected. "The divorce papers were filed this morning." Drew stood on my other side, arms crossed. How much did he manage to steal? Just over $4 million. But we've frozen everything. He won't see a penny of it. Through the glass, Michael's lawyer was whispering urgently in his ear. Michael shook his head repeatedly, getting more agitated by the second. "He's about to crack," Agent Torres said. "Want to watch?" I nodded, and she led us into the observation room where Ethan was already waiting. The audio feed crackled to life. "Looking at 15 years minimum," Michael's lawyer was saying, "unless you cooperate fully." "This is all a misunderstanding," Michael protested. "Drew and I had an arrangement." The door opened, and Julia was led in by another agent. Michael's face went ash white. "Tell them everything," Julia snapped. "I already have." "Julia, baby, we had a plan. Your plan was to steal my uncle's money and leave me behind." She slammed her hands on the table. "I found the ticket to the Caymans, Michael. One ticket. You never meant to take me with you." Michael slumped in his chair. "It wasn't supposed to go this way." "Tell us how it was supposed to go," Agent Torres stepped in. "From the beginning." I found out about Drew being Ethan's father by accident. Was doing some genealogy research, trying to find dirt on Drew for a business deal. When I saw the DNA match..." He swallowed hard. "I knew it was my ticket to everything I wanted." "So you seduced me," Julia's voice cracked, "made me fall in love with you, convinced me to hurt my own cousin." "The wedding was the perfect cover," Michael continued. "Everyone would be focused on the scandal. Nobody would look too closely at the business dealings until it was too late." Beside me, Ethan's hands clenched into fists. Drew put a steadying hand on his shoulder. "And the contracts?" Agent Torres prompted. "Designed to transfer controlling interest to my shell companies. Once Drew signed, I'd have stripped the assets and been gone before anyone realized." "But I didn't sign," Drew's voice boomed through the intercom, making Michael jump. "Because my son and his mother stopped you." Michael's head snapped up, finally noticing us behind the glass. His face twisted with rage. "You!" he snarled at me. "You ruined everything." "No, Michael. You did that all by yourself." Julia stood up, straightening her shoulders. "I'm pressing charges, too, for fraud, emotional manipulation, everything." "Julia, please." "Save it. You know what the worst part is? I actually loved you, but you never loved anyone except money." She walked out, head high. Michael watched her go, then turned to the agents. "I want to make a deal." "Too late," Agent Torres smiled. "We already have everything we need, including your confession." The next hour was a blur of paperwork and statements. When we finally emerged from the FBI building, the sun was rising. "Well," Rachel was waiting with coffee for everyone, "that was quite a night." "It's not over yet," Drew checked his phone. "The press is already running the story. Michael's face is everywhere." "Good," Ethan said firmly. "Let everyone see what he really is." I watched my son, noting how he stood taller now, more confident. The past month had changed him, but not in the way Michael had intended. "Wendy," Drew touched my arm. "I've been thinking about that night at the gala 23 years ago." "Don't," I stopped him. "We were different people then. What matters is now." He nodded, looking at Ethan. "Would you both join me for breakfast? There's a lot we should talk about." "Like how you're going to make up for 23 years of missed birthdays?" Ethan's tone was light, but the question was serious. "That's a start," Drew smiled. "Though I think helping put your ex-stepfather in prison is a pretty good first gift." As we walked to Drew's car, I glanced back at the FBI building. Michael was being led out in handcuffs, head down, avoiding the gathering news cameras. Mom? Ethan held the car door for me. Are you okay? I thought about the past month, the pain, the betrayal, the sweet taste of justice. You know what? I really am. The morning sun felt warm on my face as we drove away, leaving Michael and his schemes behind. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just exposing the truth, it's finding a better truth waiting to be discovered. 2 months after Michael's arrest, I sat in my living room watching Ethan and Drew pore over old photo albums. The scene still felt surreal, my son and his biological father making up for lost time. Wait, is that me at my 5th birthday? Ethan pointed to a faded photograph. Yeah, the dinosaur party, I smiled. You insisted on wearing that T-Rex costume for a week straight. Drew's phone buzzed. It had been doing that constantly since the news of Michael's fraud broke. Sorry. Another reporter wanting a statement about the plea deal. Are they still camping outside your office? I asked. Not since I threatened to sue their networks. He set his phone down. But Michael's sentencing is tomorrow. They'll be back. The doorbell rang. Rachel let herself in, waving a newspaper. Have you seen this? Michael's story is everywhere. Corporate Casanova's con game crumbles. Catchy, Ethan snorted. What's the verdict looking like? With the plea deal? 8 to 10 years minimum. She sprawled on the couch. Julia's testimony really nailed him. How is she? I asked, surprising myself by actually caring. Better. She's in therapy, moved to the West Coast for a fresh start. Drew's helping her get back on her feet. Drew nodded. She's family, misguided and manipulated, but family. Speaking of family, Rachel pulled out an envelope. Look what came in the mail. It was an invitation to the annual charity gala, the same one where Drew and I had met 23 years ago. Too soon? Rachel asked. Actually, Drew straightened up, I was hoping you'd all come, as my guests. It's time to show everyone that we've moved past the scandal. I don't know. Ethan hesitated. Come on, son. Let's make some better memories in that ballroom. The word son still made Ethan smile every time. Okay, but I'm not dancing. We'll see about that, I teased. Your father was quite the dancer back in the day. Still am, Drew protested. Though that night at the gala, I had liquid courage helping me along. My phone lit up with a text. I froze when I saw who it was from. Michael? Rachel peered over my shoulder. What does he want? He's asking to see me, before the sentencing tomorrow. My hands shook slightly. Says he needs to explain something important. Don't go, Ethan said immediately. It's another manipulation. Actually, Drew leaned forward. Maybe you should. Give him one last chance to see exactly what he lost. I stared at the text. You think? Mom, you're stronger than him now. You proved that at the gala. Ethan squeezed my hand. Besides, I'd love to know what excuse he comes up with. After some discussion, I texted back agreeing to meet. The response came immediately, tomorrow morning, at the detention center. I'll drive you, Rachel offered. Moral support in the parking lot. We'll all go, Drew said. Family stands together. Later that evening, after everyone had left, Ethan helped me clean up. You know what's weird? He said, loading the dishwasher. I'm actually happier now than before all this happened. Really? Yeah, I mean, losing Julia hurt like hell, but finding Drew, watching you become this amazing force of justice? He grinned. It's like we traded our fake family for a real one. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Melina, clutching a file. Sorry to drop by so late, but you need to see this. She spread photos across my kitchen counter. Michael's been writing letters from detention to Julia. What? I grabbed the nearest photo, a guard passing an envelope to a courier. He's still trying to manipulate her, Melina explained, promising to make everything right when he gets out, saying he really did love her. Does Drew know? Not yet, but Julia's been turning the letters over to the FBI unopened. Melina smiled. Seems she's done with his lies. I gathered the photos, adding them to our growing file of Michael's schemes. Perfect timing, I said. I'm seeing him tomorrow. One last conversation before he goes away for good. Want me to dig up anything else before then? I thought about Michael, sitting in his cell, probably rehearsing whatever story he planned to tell me. No, I decided. I have everything I need. The truth is more powerful than any evidence now. Ethan started making coffee. Want to practice your destroying Michael speech? I can play him. I've got the smug look down pat. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in months. Actually, I think I'll just wing it. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being happy without them. Mom? Yeah? I'm proud of you, for everything. I hugged my son, breathing in the moment. Tomorrow I would face Michael one last time, but tonight I had everything I needed right here. The truth had indeed set us free, just like that anonymous note had promised. The detention center's visiting room was smaller than I expected. Michael sat across from me, orange jumpsuit replacing his designer suits, stubble darkening his usually clean-shaven face. You look good, Wendy, he said quietly. Really good. Save it, Michael. Why did you want to see me? He leaned forward, chains clinking. I've had a lot of time to think in here, about us, about Ethan, about everything I threw away. If this is your attempt at an apology, it's more than that. He glanced at the guard, lowering his voice. I know where the rest of the money is. Money the FBI hasn't found yet. I sat back, studying him. And you're telling me this why? Because I want to make things right. For Ethan. His eyes turned pleading. He's still my son, Wendy. 23 years of raising him. Stop. My voice cut through his act. First, Ethan has a father. His real father. And second, I know about the letters you've been writing to Julia. His face twitched. How did you? I have my sources. Still trying to manipulate everyone, aren't you? Even from in here. You don't understand. Julia and I... She's turning your letters over to the FBI. Unopened. I enjoyed watching that news hit him. Face it, Michael. You've lost everyone. He slumped back, mask cracking. What do you want from me? The truth. For once in your life, just tell me the truth. Fine. His voice turned hard. The truth is, I was tired. Tired of being the good husband, the devoted father, the reliable businessman. When I found out about Drew being Ethan's father, it was like permission to take what I deserved. What you deserved? I leaned forward. You deserve to destroy your son's happiness, to humiliate him in front of everyone he knows? I deserved a better life. He slammed his hands on the table, making the guard step closer. Do you know what it's like, watching Drew Hill's success all these years? His wealth, his power, and then to find out he was Ethan's real father? So you used Julia to get revenge? I loved Julia, he insisted. At first it was just about getting close to Drew's money, but she was different. Different enough to abandon at the airport? He flinched. That wasn't the plan. Things got complicated. No, Michael, you got greedy, and now you've lost everything. Not everything. His eyes turned calculating. That hidden money. It could be Ethan's. A trust fund to make up for... Stop. I stood up. You don't get to buy your way back into his life. Not now, not ever. Wendy, please. I'm facing 8 years in here. Don't let Ethan forget me. Forget you? I laughed bitterly. Oh, he'll remember you, Michael. Every time he looks at a wedding photo, every time someone mentions trust or loyalty, you taught him exactly what those things aren't worth. I'm still his father. No. You're the man who tried to destroy him for money. Drew is his father, by blood and now by choice. Michael's face twisted with rage. Drew Hill doesn't deserve... Drew was there when Ethan broke down after you left. Drew helped him rebuild his confidence, his trust in people. Drew chose to be a father when you chose to be a con man. The guard stepped forward. Time's up. I gathered my purse, then paused. You know what the funny thing is, Michael? If you'd just been honest from the start, about finding out about Drew, about wanting more from life, we might have worked something out. But you chose lies and betrayal. Wendy, his voice cracked, what am I supposed to do now? That's not my problem anymore. Goodbye, Michael. I walked out without looking back, finding Ethan, Drew, and Rachel waiting in the parking lot. How'd it go? Ethan asked. He tried to bribe his way back into your life with hidden money. Drew snorted. Money we already found. The FBI's forensic accountants are very thorough. Did he at least apologize? Rachel asked. He apologized to himself, mostly. I took Ethan's hand. Ready for the sentencing? Actually, Ethan looked at Drew. Dad and I were thinking of skipping it. Maybe go look at that office space for my new tech startup instead? The word dad still made Drew beam every time. The investors are excited to meet you, son. I watched them walk to Drew's car, heads together, already planning the future. Rachel linked her arm through mine. Coming to lunch with us? I looked back at the detention center one last time. Absolutely. I'm done living in the past. Michael would get his sentence today, but I realized I didn't need to be there. My revenge wasn't in watching him go to prison. It was in living well without him. The annual charity gala looked different this time, brighter somehow, despite being in the same ballroom where everything had started. Drew stood at the podium, addressing the crowd. Tonight, we're not just celebrating our charitable achievements, he said. We're celebrating family, in all its forms. I'd like to introduce my son Ethan and his new tech startup that's revolutionizing digital security. Ethan took the stage confidently, his presentation smooth and professional. I watched from my table, pride swelling as potential investors nodded approvingly. Your son's a natural, Rachel whispered. Who knew getting betrayed would lead to all this? Life's funny that way, I agreed, then noticed my phone lighting up with a text. Julia, can we talk? I'm by the terrace. I found her there, looking elegant but nervous in a simple black dress. Thanks for coming out, she said. I wasn't sure you would. Almost didn't. But Drew said you had news. I'm getting married. She twisted her hands together. To someone who actually loves me, and I wanted you to hear it from me first. Why? Because I owe you an apology, a real one. She met my eyes. What Michael and I did to Ethan, to all of you, it was unforgivable. But watching you rebuild, seeing how you handled everything with such grace, it taught me something. What's that? That real love isn't about schemes or money. It's about choosing to be better, even when life gets messy. She pulled out an envelope. This is my wedding invitation. I understand if you don't want it. I took the envelope, considering. Does your fiancé know about everything? Everything. He says our mistakes don't define us. Our choices after them do. Inside, Ethan's voice carried through the open doors as he finished his presentation to enthusiastic applause. Julia smiled sadly. He sounds happy. He is. Drew's been amazing for him. And you? She asked. Are you happy? I thought about Michael, sitting in his prison cell with his schemes and regrets. About Drew, stepping up to be the father Ethan deserved. About my own journey from betrayed wife to stronger woman. Yes, I said simply. I really am. The terrace doors opened and Ethan appeared. He stopped short when he saw Julia. Hey, she said softly. Hey. His voice was neutral, but not angry. Progress. Your presentation was incredible, she offered. The security software, it's brilliant. Thanks, Drew, Dad. He really helped make it happen. An awkward silence fell. Julia handed him an envelope too. I'll understand if you throw this away, but I wanted you to have it. Ethan took the invitation, tucking it into his pocket without opening it. I'll think about it. She nodded, then slipped back inside. Ethan turned to me. You okay, Mom? Shouldn't I be asking you that? I'm good, actually. Really good. He leaned on the terrace railing. You know what I realized? Michael did us a favor. How so? He tried to tear us apart, but he ended up giving us something better. A real father for me, strength for you, truth for all of us. He grinned. Plus, my company is about to sign 3 major contracts. Not bad for a guy who got left at the altar. Drew joined us, champagne glasses in hand. To family, he proposed. We clinked glasses as the city lights twinkled below. Inside, the band started playing, the same song that had been playing when Drew and I had danced 23 years ago. I believe that's our cue. Drew held out his hand to me. For old time's sake? Dad's got moves, Ethan teased. Better watch out, Mom. As Drew led me to the dance floor, I caught glimpses of our reflection in the ballroom mirrors. Not the same people we were 2 decades ago, but better versions. Stronger, wiser. Penny for your thoughts? Drew asked. Just thinking about karma. How sometimes it needs a little push, but it always comes through. Speaking of karma, he twirled me gently. Michael's hidden accounts funded Ethan's startup. Seems fitting, don't you think? I laughed, watching Ethan chat with investors across the room. Perfect justice. The song ended, but Drew kept holding my hand. You know, we never did finish our dance that night. That was a lifetime ago. Maybe, but some things are worth waiting for. As the next song began, I saw Rachel giving me a thumbs up, saw Ethan's knowing smile, felt the warmth of Drew's hand in mine. Michael had tried to write our ending, but instead, he'd given us a new beginning. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting better. And we'd done exactly that.